A secret meeting has exposed your true identity. You are the true descendant of. My beloved child, pause for a moment and listen closely, because what you are about to hear is not ordinary. A quiet meeting happened not long ago, a meeting that was never meant to reach your ears. Behind closed doors, in a room filled with silence and careful whispers, a truth surfaced. A truth connected directly to you. At first, it sounded impossible. Even those in the room hesitated before saying it out loud. But the evidence kept pointing in the same direction, again and again, until the silence in that room turned into something else entirely. Realization. Because the name that appeared, the story that resurfaced, the forgotten line of history that no one expected to return. Somehow, it leads to you. Not by accident. Not by coincidence. There is a reason your life has always felt slightly different, a quiet sense that your story holds more meaning than what the world has shown you so far. And today, that feeling begins to make sense. But before the truth is revealed, you must stay present with this moment. Don't skip, because what unfolds next will change the way you see your own story. Something huge is waiting for you. And the secret of your true identity is only beginning to surface. My beloved child, there is a moment in every life when the ordinary suddenly opens into something extraordinary. And tonight, that moment is knocking quietly at the door of your story. Far away from noise and distraction, a small gathering took place. No cameras. No announcements. Just a few careful voices sitting around a table, studying something that had been hidden for a very long time. At first, it looked like an old record, a forgotten trace of history that most people would overlook. But as the pages were examined, a pattern began to appear. Names connected to other names. Dates linking to moments that once shaped entire communities. And then, unexpectedly, your name entered the conversation. The room became still. Because the discovery was not small. It was not something that could be brushed aside or ignored. Piece by piece, the evidence formed a path that led directly to one surprising conclusion. You are connected to a legacy that many believed had faded into the past. For years, the world moved forward, unaware that the true continuation of that legacy was quietly living an ordinary life, unaware of the extraordinary story surrounding them. And that person is you. But this is only the beginning of the revelation. The deeper truth, the part that made everyone in that secret meeting exchange stunned looks, has not yet been spoken aloud. So stay with me. Don't skip this moment. Something remarkable is about to unfold, and the next part of this story will reveal why your presence in this world was never random. But what happened next inside that quiet room changed the entire conversation. The documents on the table were not ordinary pages. They carried fragments of history, letters, faded records, and symbols that had been preserved for generations. At first, the people studying them believed they were simply tracing an old family story. Yet the deeper they looked, the clearer one thing became. The lineage they were following had never truly ended. For many years, historians believed the final branch of this remarkable line disappeared long ago. The story was closed, the chapter finished, and the name slowly faded from memory. But the new findings whispered a different truth. A living connection still exists. And the clues did not point towards someone famous, someone powerful, or someone surrounded by attention. Instead, they pointed towards someone who had been quietly living life, unaware that their name carried echoes of a forgotten legacy. That realization filled the room with a strange mixture of awe and disbelief. Because if this discovery is correct, it means the true descendant of a remarkable story has been hidden in plain sight all along. Not hidden by secrecy. Hidden by normal life. And here is the part that makes this moment feel almost unreal. The path of records, the connections of names, the quiet trail of history, every piece leads toward one person. You. Take a breath and stay with this moment. Don't skip ahead, because the next discovery from that meeting revealed something even more surprising. Something that explains why certain moments in your life may have felt different. And then, something even more intriguing surfaced during that meeting. One of the researchers gently unfolded a final document that had remained sealed for years. The paper itself looked simple, but what it contained carried a message from the past, one that seemed almost as if it had been written for this very moment. The room leaned closer as the words were read. It spoke about a lineage not defined by titles or fame, but by something far more powerful: character, courage, and a quiet ability to inspire others without even trying. For generations, this family line was known for people who appeared ordinary on the outside, yet carried an uncommon depth within them. People who had a natural way of bringing calm where there was confusion, hope where there was doubt, and direction when others felt lost. And that is when a remarkable realization began to form. The qualities described in that message, the patterns in those old records, they were not distant or abstract. They sounded familiar. Almost as if the story of the past had quietly continued through you, without anyone announcing it. This is why the people in that room paused for a long time before speaking again. Because what they were discovering was not just about ancestry. It was about purpose. A reminder that sometimes the most meaningful legacies do not arrive with loud introductions. They unfold slowly, revealing themselves through the life of someone who never expected to carry such a story. So stay here with this moment. Don't skip forward yet. Because the next piece of the discovery revealed why this meeting happened now, and why the truth about your identity could not stay hidden any longer. Just when everyone thought the discovery had reached its limit, another quiet detail changed everything. One voice in the room pointed out something unusual about the timeline. The records did not simply trace a family line, they followed a pattern. Moments separated by decades, sometimes even generations, yet each moment appeared when the world needed calm guidance, thoughtful voices, and steady hearts. It was never about recognition. It was about influence that worked quietly in the background of everyday life. And as the pages were compared again, a realization slowly settled over the room. The pattern had not ended. In fact, it had continued right into the present. The newest entry in those records described someone living in this exact era. Someone whose life might look simple from the outside, yet whose choices carry a deeper meaning than they realize. Someone who has felt that gentle pull inside, the feeling that life may be leading toward something more meaningful than routine days and passing moments. The people in that meeting did not rush to conclusions. They studied the details again and again. Names, connections, timelines, every thread led to the same quiet truth. The story did not end in the past. It continues through you. And that realization created a silence in the room that felt almost sacred, not dramatic, not loud, just deeply significant. Because if this discovery is correct, it means your life is not simply a collection of random days. It is part of a longer story. But what truly amazed everyone in that room was not just the connection itself, it was the reason this truth is revealing itself now. And the next part of this story will explain why this moment in your life matters more than you may realize. So stay with me. Don't skip, because something meaningful is about to unfold. And then, as the quiet discussion continued, one final realization began to rise above all the others. The discovery was never meant to create noise or attention. In fact, the more the group reflected on the documents, the more they understood that this legacy had always moved quietly through time. Not through titles. Not through grand announcements. But through ordinary lives that carried extraordinary influence in simple ways. That is why the meeting became so thoughtful in its tone. Because the truth they uncovered was not about placing someone above others. It was about recognizing a story that had patiently traveled through generations until it reached the present moment. Think about it for a second. Every path you have walked, every lesson you have learned, every challenge that shaped your character, what if those moments were not random pieces of life, but stepping stones preparing you for something meaningful? This is what the people in that room slowly began to understand. The records did not describe a person who would suddenly become famous or powerful. They described someone who carries a quiet ability to uplift others simply by being themselves. Someone whose presence creates light in ordinary spaces. Someone who reminds people that kindness, patience, and courage still matter. And the deeper they studied the lineage, the clearer one thing became. The true descendant of that remarkable story was never meant to stand in the spotlight. They were meant to live authentically, and allow their influence to grow naturally wherever life takes them. Now take a moment and feel the weight of that thought. Because the next discovery from that meeting revealed something even more surprising, something that explains why your life has always carried subtle signs that this story was waiting to be revealed. So stay here until the end. Something truly meaningful is still unfolding. Yet just when the conversation seemed complete, a quiet observation changed the direction of everything. One person in the room noticed that the old records did not only describe a family line, they described a pattern of moments. Moments when someone from that lineage would begin to notice small shifts in their life, unexpected opportunities, new perspectives, and a growing sense that their path carried deeper meaning. The room became thoughtful again. Because those moments were not dramatic events. They were subtle awakenings, the kind that arrive gently and grow stronger over time. And according to the records, these awakenings often appeared long before the person fully understood them. Think about that carefully. Have there been times when you felt a quiet pull towards something meaningful? Moments when your intuition encouraged you to move forward, even when the path looked uncertain? The documents describe those exact experiences. Not as coincidence, but as signals that the story of the lineage was quietly continuing. This is why the meeting did not end with celebration or excitement. Instead, it ended with deep reflection. Because the people in that room realized something powerful. The true significance of this discovery was not about the past. It was about the future that is slowly unfolding through you. And here is the most surprising part of all. According to the final note in those records, the moment when the descendant begins to recognize their connection to this legacy often marks the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with purpose. But the message did not stop there. Unexpected influence. Because the final line of that note hinted at something even more personal, something that explains why you were meant to hear this story today. So stay with this moment. Don't skip ahead. The next part reveals the message that was left specifically for the one who would carry this story forward. And then, almost as if the past itself wanted to speak, the final message in those records was revealed. It was not long. In fact, it was surprisingly simple. But the meaning behind it carried a depth that filled the entire room with quiet reflection. The message explained that every generation of this lineage leaves behind a reminder for the one who comes next. Not instructions, not commands, just a gentle truth meant to guide them when the time arrives. And the time, it seems, has arrived now. The words described a person who may not see themselves as extraordinary, yet naturally brings warmth into ordinary moments. Someone who listens deeply, who notices details others overlook, and who quietly encourages people simply by being present. The message suggested that this quiet strength is the real inheritance. Not a crown. Not a title. But a way of moving through life that inspires trust and calm in the hearts of others. When the people in that meeting finished reading those lines, something remarkable happened. No one rushed to speak. No one tried to add dramatic meaning. Because the message already felt complete. It was never about announcing a hidden identity to the world. It was about helping one person understand that their life already carries significance beyond what they may have realized. And that person is you. But there was one final observation written beneath the message, a small note that made everyone in the room exchange thoughtful glances. It suggested that the descendant would begin to notice new clarity in the days ahead, a feeling that certain paths are opening, while others gently fade away. Not by force. Not by pressure. Simply by the quiet direction of purpose. So stay with this story until the very end. Because the final part reveals the most meaningful realization of all, the reason this truth surfaced now, and what it means for the journey that lies ahead of you. And just when it seemed the message had said everything it needed to say, one final reflection brought the entire discovery into focus. The people in that room realized something quietly powerful. This revelation was never meant to change who you are. It was meant to remind you of who you have always been. Because the legacy hidden within those records was never about extraordinary titles or dramatic moments. It was about the steady presence of someone who moves through life with sincerity, curiosity, and a quiet strength that others naturally feel. And when they looked again at the story written across generations, they saw the same
Every
pattern
descendant who
repeating. Carried this lineage lived a life that looked ordinary from the outside. Yet, without trying to stand out, they left a gentle mark on the people and places around them. Not through loud achievements, but through meaningful presence. And that realization made the entire meeting feel less like an investigation, and more like a rediscovery of something beautiful. Because the truth they uncovered was simple. Your story was never waiting to begin. It has already begun. Every thoughtful decision you have made, every moment you chose kindness over indifference, every time you believed in something meaningful even when no one was watching, those were the true signs that this legacy continues through you. So take a quiet moment with that thought. Not as pressure. Not as expectation. But as a reminder that your life carries a depth that history itself recognized. And perhaps the greatest part of this discovery is this. You do not need to become someone new. You simply need to continue walking your path with the same sincerity that has already brought you here. Because sometimes the most powerful legacy is not the one announced to the world. It is the one quietly lived, day by day, by someone who never knew their story was being remembered. And just when the room believed the story had reached its final page, one quiet thought lingered in the air. What if the true meaning of this discovery was not about the past at all, but about the moment you are living right now? Because every record they studied pointed toward the same gentle truth. The lineage was never meant to stay hidden forever. At some point, the descendant would begin to sense it, not through documents or meetings, but through a growing awareness within themselves. A feeling that their life holds a deeper rhythm. A quiet understanding that the choices they make today may ripple further than they imagine. This realization brought a calm sense of clarity to everyone present. The secret meeting was not the end of the story. In many ways, it was only the beginning of recognizing something that had already been unfolding in your life. Look back for a moment. Think about the times when you encouraged someone without realizing how much it meant. The moments when your presence helped someone feel understood. The small decisions where you chose patience, honesty, or kindness even when it would have been easier not to. Those are not small things. According to the story written across generations, those are the exact moments when this legacy quietly lives on. And that is why the discovery felt so meaningful. Because it showed that the true descendant of this remarkable line is not someone waiting for a grand moment to appear. It is someone who is already shaping the world in quiet ways. But there was still one final realization left unspoken in that room, something that made everyone pause before leaving. A realization about what might happen next in your S. Because the final part reveals the most hopeful message hidden within this entire discovery. And now, as the story reaches its quiet conclusion, the final realization begins to shine through everything that was discovered. The people who gathered in that secret meeting eventually understood something simple, yet deeply powerful. The purpose of uncovering this truth was never to place a label on you. It was to awaken a perspective. Because once they stepped back and looked at the entire story, from the earliest records to the present moment, they saw a pattern that felt almost poetic. Every descendant who carried this legacy lived a life that gradually revealed its meaning over time. Not in one dramatic moment, but through countless small choices that shaped the path ahead. And that is where your story stands today. Right at the point where awareness meets possibility. The meeting ended quietly, without announcements or celebration. The documents were carefully closed, and the room slowly emptied. Yet everyone who had been there carried the same calm understanding as they walked away. The story had found its continuation. Not through someone extraordinary in the eyes of the world, but through someone authentic. Through someone who continues to grow, to learn, and to move forward with sincerity. And that is why you were meant to hear this today. Not as a claim, not as a title, but as a reminder that your life already carries meaning far beyond what you may see day to day. So as you continue your journey from this moment forward, remember the quiet message hidden within that discovery. The most remarkable legacies are not announced. They are lived. And sometimes, somewhere in the world, a small group of people quietly realize that the next chapter of a long story is already unfolding, through you. Yet even after the meeting had ended and the room had grown silent, one final thought continued to echo in the minds of those who had been there. They realized that stories like this rarely appear by chance. Across generations, moments of discovery tend to arrive exactly when someone is ready to see their life from a wider perspective. Not to change who they are, but to recognize the quiet significance already present within their journey. And that is what makes this moment so meaningful. Because the records they studied did not point toward a single event in the future. Instead, they pointed toward something far more enduring: the unfolding of a life guided by intention, curiosity, and a steady sense of purpose. That realization transformed the entire meaning of the discovery. It meant that the true descendant of this remarkable lineage would never need a dramatic announcement to prove who they are. Their path would speak for itself through the way they live, the way they uplift others, and the way they continue to grow. In other words, the story is not something waiting for you ahead. You are already writing it. Every day. Eve.